it's breathing with this admiration, respect, and you get this feeling that the work itself, this book, that pamphlet, is very much alive.
It's like a quote that I will misquote, that everything like how did he say it, like it evolves and transforms and remodifies itself, like something like that. Hello lovely people, welcome back to the newest episode of What's on Vienna, your immersive guide into the sometimes overwhelming world of classical music and arts events in the city. It's been 2 weeks. It has gotten even colder in Vienna, so it's time to cozy up even more. Look at me with my cashmere wrap, freezing here. I will complain about the cold weather endlessly. But this is basically our favorite activity in the cold winter evenings, to just sit together and talk about music and arts. So join us for another discussion.
I would like to start with fulfilling the promise I gave last time regarding the Gounod's thoughts on the opera by Mozart of Don Giovanni.
Ah, sure.
Yeah, so I promised to find the source of the quote that you mentioned, and apparently it's not from his letters that I thought. He wrote a book. It's not a very long book, it's more like a pamphlet dedicated to this opera. It's like a love letter to this music, and very entertaining, very interesting. It's not extremely deep analysis, but it's a quite detailed work with a lot of examples from the opera. It starts with the overture, or about the way how Mozart creates particular emotional state of mind, where we can hear justice, where we can hear destiny, and then he goes through the whole opera, very detailed with the story, with some musical examples, again showcasing the way Mozart achieves certain things. He writes that this work is dedicated to the young composers, but I believe it's might be very entertaining and interesting for all music lovers. It's quite simply written, and what's interesting that it's breathing with this admiration, respect, and you get this feeling that the work itself, this book, that pamphlet, is very much alive. Like you can really feel the life in it.
By the way, I don't mean to sound skeptical. I just realized that all of my okays are like with intonation. Okay, no.
I believe there's some
I'm very curious. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and he starts the work with saying this opera is one of those pinnacles beyond which there is no possibility for an advance. Like, this is one of those works in this particular genre. So
sorry.
Now I'm noticing it. I didn't. Sorry. Before.
No, just say.
In the very end, exactly. Yeah, it's always nice. In the very end, he gives a few recommendations and advices for the performers, and you can feel a bit of frustration he had with the singers in his life, although he mentioned quite a few very big names and artists, and also shows his admiration for them, which is also very sympathetic to read. But he talks about tempo, about the truth of the work, how expressing more and kind of accentuating something, particularly in the work of Mozart, is actually expressing less. That the performer has to give such a great musician as Mozart was, an honor to suppose that what he has written is actually what he wished to be written. So not invent something extra which is not there, because the work itself already a masterpiece. And he also mentions a curious story. It's actually quite outrageous. that it could happen that at one of the events he attended, the orchestra played one of the most majestic arias from Magic Flute, double tempo, and like in order to make it a dance for the ball, and how he immediately ran out of the
it's
hall.
like a remix of the 19th century.
I mean, now I don't think what could happen. Now it's not possible. But it's just funny to understand the context. And in general, he talks about how this work is not admired enough, which is interesting. It was 100 years after its creation. So I believe it might be very enriching experience to put a recording, and we're of course so privileged to have this amazing recording at our disposal at any moment, and just go with this text and
Can you tell us the name of the book in the description?
I'm
also curious. I don't know it.
I will put the link where you can download it. And
lately, I've been coming across a lot of books. I don't know. You know how like if you think about something, you start noticing a lot. Every bookstore I've gone, like music related somewhat, I keep seeing these like books of composers about composers, or like their thoughts. So it is interesting. Usually they're really thin and seem like they are super easy, fast reading, and why not? It can be entertaining. One thing we can say assuredly, is that a word? I hope so. For certain that the Don Giovanni is admired more than enough, I would say. More than enough.
Maybe because of this work by Gounod. I mean, who knows?
Who knows? Should I continue?
Sure.
Next?
Sure.
Yeah, so for my thing, I need my cheat sheet a little bit. So we've been talking about many orchestras now already up until today's episode, and a lot of them are Vienna based or Austria based, like very close to Vienna, except we've never talked about a fantastic orchestra of the radio. It's just radio, right? Or the public broadcasting, ORF radio orchestra, which in its specificity has like a mission, I guess you could say, right? A task to record and document, you would almost say, a lot of new music works, a lot of premieres, a lot of very current repertoire, but not only. And this orchestra is really excellent. This orchestra, I think we mentioned ORF orchestra just one time in context of the conductor's exam. MDV conductors of Music University at the Musikverein, which happens in June, I believe. So this is the orchestra that they get to work with.
But also Alice in Wonderland from the last episode.
This is what I was going to say. So in Theater an der Wien, they were playing this Alice in Wonderland. Music, fascinating orchestra, beautiful orchestra, and now it's a really good opportunity to talk about their next concert date. Everything information will be also linked. I think it's on the 28th of November. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Anyway, this concert program is very interesting to me personally. First of all, we see once again the work by Samy Moussa. Did we end up talking about it or not? I don't remember.
No, we were considering.
Because this is a piece called Elysium that he wrote for the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra. It's, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're more knowledgeable on this topic, but they don't premiere a lot of works.
That's true.
Like by this I mean like they really don't premiere. This is not the orchestra that is like premiering works. So for them to have commissioned this work to him, it's like a really big deal, because it is like like a really unique opportunity. And Samy Moussa is a Canadian composer and conductor who now lives in Berlin, and he is extremely successful, very famous. I do not know his music enough to talk about his style. I can only talk about this particular piece that I have listed in recorded format, also not live. And I don't know, like oftentimes people will use these words, and I'm not a master of linguistic expression, so I don't have better words, but it's really very exciting and energetic and powerful and like vivid. The piece is very alive. This piece is very alive, and I think if you are really curious about this, it's really worth checking out, because it was written for Vienna Philharmonic, and it's such an unusual thing. But of course, the radio orchestra, they do specialize in these kinds of things. This is not a super new piece. It's from 2021, so it's of course relatively new, but not like a fresh premiere. Another thing on their program, and I really hope I pronounced this correctly, is by the Estonian composer whose last name is Tüür. I have no idea. I'm sorry. I really apologize. And he is now probably the most prominent Estonian composer. He is born in 1959, so still very active, fresh, and in his prime. And he has a very interesting biography because he happens to be a flutist by education and a percussionist and a composer. And then he founded one of the very famous Estonian rock bands, which I didn't know. And he was basically a rock star, not basically, but he was the rock star in Estonia. And then he decided to fully dedicate himself to composing. As he was in his rock star period of life, he was also composing for the band. Well, he also played flute and percussion and he sang. But then he switched completely to so-called serious writing. And his style has also evolved a lot. Also, to be honest, I do not know his body of work enough to talk about it in full, but what we can say is that he used to mix everything from rock to Gregorian chant until he developed his own composition technique, which I believe he calls vectoral. And it's it's like a quote that I will misquote, that everything how did he say it, it evolves and transforms and remodifies itself, something like that. I'm being really bad at this. So why is this interesting? It's very, very, very interesting because you have a huge flute superstar in the flute world, Emmanuel Pahud, who is phenomenal, and everybody who has ever interested themselves with the world of classical flute will have known this name, just grandmaster. French flutist. And so this is a flute concerto that he wrote for Emmanuel Pahud, which is inspired, once again I will misquote, by the Milky Way and the nebulas and the galaxies and the stars doing stuff, I don't know, something like that. And once again, the critique for this work, I have also not heard this work, is that it is very vibrant and very strong. But the quote that I read from him, and I really liked it, and I will once again probably misquote it, but you get the gist, is that when he's composing music, he wants to get the response from the audience, that he wants to evoke the creative part of the listener. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was I
hope you are not misquoting.
It's maybe another cool word, not evoke or something. This is the idea. It's what he's trying. He's trying to speak to the creative essence of the listener, which he wants to provoke and evoke. I thought that was really nice.
Which is basically always an intention.
You should have that as an intention.
Very, very nicely put. Yeah, it's interesting that it's.
And I think from his past, this is now my speculation, but why I can speculate. From his past as a rock performer, he knows the crowd, he knows the audience, he knows how to, ignite the fire of the audience. Not sometimes we do classical musicians. We try, but we are not limited, but we have to do it in different ways that are sometimes harder to get across to the audience than if you are literally in a rock concert. So I think that this is the special connection of this really overwhelming energy. it's no secret that as classical musicians we do not play for stadiums of 70,000 people. And so if you've had this this connection and energy, then you are seeking it and you are trying to somehow recreate it in a classical set. I think it's really cool. That really interested me, and knowing Emmanuel Pahud, I think it will be wonderful. I'm at least extremely curious.
Sounds very
really
exciting.
I'm very interested about this, really interested. And then they are, how should I say this, not balancing and not contrasting, but expanding this program with two works that at first seems like they, it didn't seem like this to me. I don't know why I said that. At first glance, someone might think that they don't match, but they actually match perfectly. And now I will say what they are. They're standard repertoire. Wagner's Parsifal Vorspiel, and then the symphonic poem of Richard Strauss called Tod und Verklärung. This particular symphonic poem I'm not very familiar with, but I think that this idea of this, how should I say, transcendental luminosity, Milky Way, this ellipsium, this whole thing is somehow interesting. I don't know. The marketing of the program totally works on me, you can tell. I'm completely sold, and I know that they will play this beautifully. So, I don't know. I think it might be really like a little journey into like outer space, kind of. Yeah. I don't know. It sounds like it will be a very cool concert. Definitely worth checking out. 28th of November.
Now you remembered.
Now I remembered. Yes, 28th of November. I didn't. I have it written down. Sorry, cheating. But yeah, I hope I ignited your interest and I sold you on this, because I'm completely sold and I'm very interested in this.
Me too. And I loved all the quotes that were probably not misquoted.
I mean, I didn't memorize them. I give you the gist, the paraphrase, you know. I think I've admitted this. I don't know if anyone's curious about this, but I've admitted this. I've had a very, very hard time in school memorizing poetry. So I would always try to move words. So this is no different, you know, like quoting someone perfectly by heart is not something I'm good at.
But you had to memorize really a lot, no? We talked about this.
Yeah, of course, and very badly.
Like more than in other school programs.
I don't know, but it was complicated. Yeah.
So Musikverein is introducing a new concert cycle this season, which seems quite atypical for these particular institutions. As you know, there are two main concert halls in Vienna, Konzerthaus and Musikverein. And if somebody would tell me about this concert cycle, I would assume that it's the one from the Konzerthaus. But no. So it seems like Musikverein started to experiment with the formats, which maybe happened in the past, but not to such extent, I think. So this particular concert, there are 6 of them, are going to happen a bit earlier than usual time, at 6 o'clock in the evening. They're going to be maximum 1 hour long. They present it as a moment of concentration and focusing and relaxation. And what's special about it, that it's going to happen in one of the smaller concert halls downstairs underground, and with a different setup of chairs. So it seems like the grand piano will be in the middle, and there will be different possibilities to sit down, to lay down, to stand. You can stay as close as possible to the performers. You can sit right under the piano, so there are many ways, and you can choose, and there are some pillows you can sit on. And also the price policy, can you say policy, right?
Yes.
Is very different. You pay as you wish, as you can. I mean, there is a minimal amount, I think, of €5, but there is also a maximum amount. So you just choose the category, but it doesn't influence your position in the hall.
Interesting.
And it seems like it's a bit more interactive with the performers. So when you come, I guess, like they talk a bit.
I have one question. Are you allowed also to walk around, or this?
I believe yes.
Okay.
I mean, it seems, but I guess it would be a bit. It might be disturbing.
A little interception.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to always distract you. Is that this is a huge topic, and drop down a comment if you're interested for us to talk about it in the future, or maybe we'll anyway should talk about it, not like this in passing, but like really dedicate some time to it. Is that a lot of people are very uncomfortable sitting in concert halls, and not only very young listeners, not only people who are not accustomed to going to concerts, who don't like this, like the stressful situation of this format where you have to be quiet. Also older people with back problems, and just in general, but it's not very natural to sit for like 2 hours. Okay, let's say 1 hour or 45 minutes break for whatever, in one position. That is, regardless of how comfortable the chair is, it's just weird, right? So I think that this is a very interesting topic of how important it is to make people comfortable, because we know, of course, that historically and back in the day, let's say from opera, which is of course the longest of the formats, right? People would eat and walk around and drink, and like in the loges they would dine and to wine and do the whole thing, right? So just this idea that you have to sit like very quietly for like even half an hour like this stiffly, it's just very uncomfortable. Also for me lately, like since I listen to a lot of music, obviously, like you, I'm sure, at home in the comfort of my home, whatever surroundings, I have gotten into the habit of being comfortable and listening to music. I want to lay down, I will. I want to sit down, I want to stand up, I will. So this idea that you have to be, on your best behavior is annoying me as of late. And even I'm someone who has spent my entire life in the classical music world. I don't even remember myself outside of this format, right? And even I'm stressed out by this. So sorry, I talked too much about this, but I'm very excited about that. And the idea that you can like half lie down, half sit like this, something like that, it's cool. I love that. I love that. But I'm particularly interested if you can also walk around, because that is distracting, but also very attractive. This was my question. This would be very annoying if you play.
It might be, but it depends on the space. Like it depends on the floor. It might be also not so much distracting. It's a good question.
Sorry, I derailed you. But we should maybe sometime talk about this whole formatting and. Just the setup and so on.
But like even in the picture, which I guess maybe even like AI generated, like when they present this concert cycle, you can see this, chairs like on the beach, this kind of like lounge chairs, but really like they don't, it's not like concert hall lounge chairs. It's basically the ones you see. And I don't know if they're going to be exactly
beautiful.
Like that. So I'm very curious about this concert format, and I would imagine that, as I said, there will be much more interaction with the artists themselves, and also after the concert there is a possibility to communicate with your fellow audience and the artist at the bar. So the first concert, the program is going to be 4 pieces by Vira Zhuk, Czech composer, beautiful music, who was husband of Dvořák's daughter, and also his student. And then the third sonata for violin and piano by Brahms. And the performers are Christian Tetzlaff and Kivili Dorken, beautiful duo. So I'm sure it's going to be very interesting, beautiful evening. But it's I find it's a bit funny, but sometimes even such sophisticated institutions as Musikverein would write in a description that the program is going to be very calming and like relaxing, because to have a program, to build a program which would consist of pieces of classical music that would be relaxing and calming would be very, very difficult task, because even the most like the calm music, it's always there's either like very strong melancholy, or there's a lot of substance which is never kind of this
that's again another topic, how you listen and
so I believe it's harming a tiny bit classical music image when we talk about it as something which is soothing and
I don't
calming.
think they mean it that way.
And
I think distressing from
but
life.
It's very often
I see what you
put
mean.
some classical music and relax. It's really not what classical music is about.
But it can put you into this like whatever say.
No,
sorry,
that's true. That's true.
As you said, I'm now trying to suppress my okays, and as you said, Brahms third sonata in the context of soothing. I was drinking my tea and I gasped. I slurped, so I apologize.
This
for
is such a
this is like anything but calming.
It's such a dramatic piece. So
exactly, that's like a wake up call.
So let's see how it will go.
Yeah, but I love the format. Now I will continue with something that seems to be our theme as of late. I don't know why, but why not? French opera. One more. It's either the opera house really decided to go the French route, or we have decided to pick out a huge, vast number of French operas. What do you think? Which is it?
I don't know.
Both. So I will talk about one opera which I actually really like, and a lot of people are not huge fans of. It's by, in my opinion, somewhat underestimated French composer Francis Poulenc, and his opera Dialogue of the Carmélites. Dialogue of the Carmélites is an opera that he wrote in 1957, and this opera is beloved, I think I told you this already many times, beloved opera by a lot of music universities or conservatories, because they have a lot of possibilities to give very important, almost leading roles to a lot of the female soprano singers. Now the story, for those who are not familiar, is from the so-called period of terror, which is right after the French Revolution, when some people might not remember this. French Revolution did not only attack aristocracy, but also the clerical part of the society, and very unfortunate for some people was when they were from noble families and were living in monasteries or like working for the church. Those people were huge targets. And so the brief story, it's like a long story, but like condensed story, is about this Carmelite monastery, which the nuns of this monastery became martyrs because they were guillotined. And this has been a story that fascinated many people. And Poulenc it was not really his independent decision to write opera about this topic, but it is based on a play by Georges Bernin. But this play itself, he had a copyright dispute. If you ever have time to research that, I recommend that, because it's a fascinating, very complicated story where the French Authors Society, so like basically copyright society, had to have a trial and decide who gets the rights and so on. It's a very complicated situation. But this I didn't realize. The publisher of Poulenc was Ricordi, the very famous publisher of Verdi and many other operatic composers. And so the wife of the head of Ricordi, who was herself a ballet dancer, choreographer, and stage, director, dramaturg. Her name was Margarita Wollmann. I don't want to mispronounce and misquote the names, Margarita Wollmann. She saw the play and she had this idea that Poulenc has to write it. And she's very important because she participated in the first, second, third, last, whatever stagings of this opera in La Scala, in Covent Garden, everywhere. Pleasantly for us, she saw this play together with her husband in Vienna. And so Poulenc had seen this play before and was very interested by it, and he decided to write music for it. And there is a lot of interesting moments in it. It is mostly in recitativo, so he uses recitativo a lot. At the end, with the guillotine, you have this church hymns and the sounds of guillotine in the background. It's very moving. And it's interesting in the context of Poulenc himself's life, who was very, very brief couple of words just about Poulenc himself. He really wanted to be a musician. He came from a very artistic family on one side of his family, so his mother's side of family, and his father's side of family was very religious and very successful industrialists. They had a pharmacy factory making drugs, like medicaments, not the the back end of drug, but the medicinal drugs. And he really wanted to become a musician. He started taking piano lessons from his mother when he was a kid, but his father did not allow him to pursue music and to go to the conservatory. And this was a big theme for him, because even though he had private tutors, including, for example, the one we've mentioned before, also Coquelin, the student and assistant of Fauré, who helped a lot of people, and he was also mentored by Eric Satie and had a lot of support from outside. He had met Ravel, with whom he did not have a good relationship, and many other composers, he did not really have this true formal education. And as some people would say at the time, is that he really benefited from the change of the times, that the late Romantic era was coming to an end, and so he didn't really need this incredible vast knowledge of formal education, you know, that you would have to have if you were trying to write in the style of Richard Strauss or Gustav Mahler. And still he became part of Les Six, the Six, the famous group, and they had traveled to Vienna even to meet Schoenberg and Berg and Webern, and they were very inspired by them, had a lot of respect towards them, but didn't really take too much from them at all, pretty much. And so the music of his first half of his life is very light. It's like very positive, little bit, you know, the Satie inspired, just like lively music, you know. But then he, in the 30s, he became very religious. I mean, he was very religious, but then he really found once again this religious side in him. And a lot of people consider that strange because he was gay, pretty much openly gay, and the church was really not okay with that. But still he somehow managed to, you know, like reconcile this two parts of his personality, and was a very dedicated Catholic. So for him to have written this work is actually very organic and logical, and this is why his publisher and recorder, you know, they thought about him to actually make this work you know, come to fruition. In my very humble opinion, this is one of his best works, probably his best work, and it's a very moving work, regardless of if you are religious or not. Obviously, it is not this kind of typical work that just, you know, the cloisters, the monastery and the nuns. No, it's like very vivid. A lot of people already at his time thought that this is maybe the commentary on the post-war situation in France, because it's written in the late 50s. Some sources say he finished it in 56, some in 57, doesn't matter. But, you know, France, like the rest of Europe, was also coming out of this huge trauma of World War II. You know, they were occupied, some collaborated, the resistance, and so they feel like this work also reflected the times really beautifully. And I think it's really a moving opera. It's not every day you see it staged. Of course, it's not as unusual as some of the works we talked about. Not at all. You have many recordings on YouTube available to you. But if you can hear it live, I do recommend it, because it has really something very special in it. It might ignite your creative part. I think it would. And I'm very excited to see it, because it's been a while since I've seen it. It's been probably like 20 years almost since I've seen it. So I'm very curious to see it with new eyes and with new ears. That's all from my side.
Very interesting. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please comment, subscribe if you haven't yet. And see you soon.
See you soon, everyone. Bye.